Hi, everybody. Hi, Lori. Good to be back.
Yes, and we have Chris from Resolute. We are here to talk about fixing the fundraiser and board roles that actually work for your event. Hey, before we kick off, I always ask people in the bottom right-hand corner in the chat pod, get your fingers out. I'd love to know geographically what kind of organization you're fundraising for, what area geographically you are tuning in from. And I would love for you to put in your LinkedIn or your organization's Facebook page, or whatever you guys share regularly on your website and in these sort of conversations. Okay, Gazala and Chris, we need you because Octree is the tech. We've got that figured out. We've streamlined everything. However, many times organizations feel really struggled with their internal conflicts and their boards, and what do I ask people, what do I tell them, what do I this, what do I that. And now's my chance to say, well, let's talk to the experts. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about you guys, and kick us off here?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go into that. Do you want me to just go ahead and kick it off?
Please.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. We are both very excited to be here. We are going to be talking about board roles and your board and how you can really engage them in your events. So we're very excited about that. We're gonna walk through that. And before we get started, we'll just tell you a little bit about us. And so a little bit about GFS events. Mentioned, my name is Gazala Uradnik. I am the founder of GFS Events, and we are a full-service event management company. We specialize in only working with nonprofits, and we create exceptional and successful fundraising events for nonprofits. And our mission is really to raise more money for your organization than you could hopefully do on your own. And we do that through a variety of different. Oops, I think I'm going a little too fast here, Lori. Hang on a second. Getting used to the, okay, there we go. We do that through a variety of different types of events. So we do that through galas and auctions, benefit dinners, luncheons, walks, runs, golf tournaments, conferences, and then of course, community events as well.
And my name is Chris Baiocchi. My pronouns are he, him, and I am with Resolute Philanthropy. I'm a fundraising consultant. I help nonprofits raise more money and do more good for their mission, for their communities, for their staff. I do that through coaching and training and strategic support. And I do a lot of work with board members. So I know how good they can be, and I know how challenging they can be too.
And so let's talk a little bit about what is the problem with your events. So when you are looking at your events, what do you find that's not working? What I see with my clients is that usually they say, hey, our events aren't attracting new donors, supporters. The same people come year after year, and you're not necessarily creating a pipeline for new folks. Perhaps you're not hitting your revenue goals. You can't seem to increase your revenue from year to year. And then maybe your event isn't really supporting your fundraising strategy. Hopefully you have a fundraising strategy and it's not only your event, but it's not supporting that. And then perhaps, I've heard this before too, I hear this all the time, we always do it that way. This is how we've always done it. So you're doing it a traditional way, but it's not really based on strategy.
So from the perspective of the board and how we work with our board members at our events, some ways we kind of define this problem is board members don't attend events. Some of you mentioned that in the chat as well. They won't participate in event outreach or fundraising. You're going to hear this a lot from us today, that outreach and fundraising, relationships and revenue are the key drivers of board success when it comes to events. Not all of our board members do that. Maybe instead they're focused on event logistics and details. That's, again, you'll hear more on that. And maybe they're just planning a party and they're not implementing a strategy. And that can be a huge warning sign that there's trouble around your event and about how your board members are thinking about your event. Now, before we dive too far down this rabbit hole, I do want to have this particular caveat that some organizations, especially smaller organizations, might not have the staff support to have a really clear difference between staff role in an event and board role in an event. So if that's you, if you're like, well, sounds good on paper, but I need my board members to do more work with the event, that's okay. We're not telling you to stop doing that. We want you to think about what you can start doing today in terms of having more strategic and more direct conversations with your board members about your event. And if you're not quite at the point where your board members can be completely 100% focused on relationships and revenue, that's okay. You'll get there. So for now, remember that. Think about what you can start doing today.
I'm going to add a little bit more to that caveat. I want you to step back just a little bit and remind you that a lot of the nonprofits out there will think of their board as a collective. So it's one group, it's a single system. The board's doing this, the board doesn't do that. But when you think of your board in that way, you're ignoring their individual skills, their individual interests, their contributions of each individual member. So I really want to remind you that your board members are individuals. And when you treat them as an entire group or a single system, then what you're doing is you're limiting your ability to communicate with them, learn from them, and also to inspire them, because everyone learns, communicates, and gets inspired in a different way. So as we move through our presentation, I want you to remember that even though we are talking about the board as a group, we are going to talk about the board as a group, just keep in the back of your mind that your board members have different skills, different strengths, and different capacities.
No, it wouldn't be a webinar without a case study. And I'll share this kind of behind the scenes hint for all of you. If a presenter like myself presents a case study, but does not name the organization, that's your clue that this is a case study of things you should not do. With that in mind, let me introduce you to this nameless nonprofit that I know of, and they threw an annual gala. And this gala was, in my opinion, the definition of a party, not a strategy. Because the decisions that were made surrounding this gala were completely based on board member preference. The founder of the organization, for example, really loved having a dance troupe, having dancing girls at the event to welcome guests to the event and perform during the event. It had nothing to do with the mission of the organization. This is not a dance organization, but he liked it, so we did it. They did it. Sorry. All the auction items were it was something that the board member was donating and another board member was going to buy. It was all kind of a circular motion. And of course, because the board members wanted to do more dancing, the staff was also charged with organizing the after party, which was immediately following the event and had separate catering and separate entertainment as well. So the whole event, was it fun? Well, people who were there had a good time. Was there a strategy behind it? No, there was not.
So I also have an anonymous, unnamed nonprofit. And in this example, we had a board member on the committee that was in the weeds for all things that were gala related. This particular board member was very well connected with a large corporation and really would have been a perfect person to connect the organization to the corporation, invite folks, and do all the things that you want from a board member. But instead of helping the development team with connections and audience development, the board member focused solely on the small details for the event. So this board member was conversing with the caterer to source specific vegetables for the meal at this event. The board member also got into the marketing department and reworked the entire invitation for the event. And this organization had an in-house marketing team. So they were actually a strong marketing team with a fantastic skill set, but the board member was still involved in that. So again, an example of a board member spending so much time in the weeds that they weren't able to actually do the things that we were hoping that they could do and to actually move that event forward. And what this ended up doing is it actually added more work for the staff and for the event team.
So when we're thinking about kind of the ideal mix between the staff and the board, we do think in two pretty clear lanes. The staff lane for your event is really focused on operations, logistics, the kind of the project management aspect. Staff members should be the ones responsible for any sort of vendor coordination, in creating the program, not the physical printed program, but like what happens at the event. Staff members are the ones who are, generally speaking, taking the lead in that lane. While board members, again, we hear those words again, relationships and revenue. And that revenue can usually takes the form of sponsorships, if that's the model your event is using, or maybe just encouraging people to give at the event. Board members are also responsible for the reputation of the organization and in supporting the program. They might be called to speak or to present or to introduce different aspects of the night. Another way to think about this is you're going to be relying on the staff to make sure the right number and the right type of chairs are in the room, placed in the right way. And we're really going to rely on the board members to help us fill those chairs with individuals who are passionate about and care about our cause and our mission.
All right, so you know what board members should be focusing on, but how do we actually get our board to really dive into the important work that needs to happen around it? Well, we have, a second here. Sorry, that was you, Chris. I'm sorry.
Keep going. Don't stop.
Okay. Alrighty, so we have four basic roles that a board will be playing. So we've divided the board into four duties, and some of your board members will play one of these roles and maybe even two of these roles, and you may have a superstar board member who plays all of them. As we talk through each of these roles, you'll see some overlap and some roles will blend into one another. What I'm going to do is share the name of these four roles, and then we'll dive deeper into each of them and what the best board practices are that you can implement so that you can have a successful event. So we've got connector and steward, investor, recruiter, and champion. So we'll start off with the connector and steward role. And this is a board member role that is really the one that is opening your doors for sponsorships and partnerships. As a connector, this board member will make warm introductions. They'll hopefully be leveraging their own network that will help elevate your event's visibility. And then going one step further into this role, the connector should also be a steward for connections and keep those relationships warm after the event. So for example, a good connector would do a thank you outreach after the event is over so that anyone that they invited, perhaps a sponsor that they've known that's part of the event, they are thanking them after the event. Now this would be in addition to any follow-up and thank you that you do as an organization.
So how do we prepare our board members, or how do we support the board members who are really serving those kind of connector and steward roles? Now, one way we can do that is by planning ahead is, sorry, I had an echo. Making sure we're giving our board members a lot of advance notice about when the event is, what we need them to do, how things are coming together. We sometimes on the staff roles, we're living this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we think the board members might know all the things we do, and they don't. So planning ahead. Also making sure we have some compelling and clear materials. If we're asking our board members to invite their colleagues to this event, we want to make sure those invitations are nice and they have all the information, and the board members have access to those kind of compelling stories about why this event is important. And finally, we want to make sure we're checking in and following up. You can't call it a board engagement strategy if you make one announcement at one board meeting and then get upset when they don't follow through. You, as the staff member, need to have those individual one-on-one conversations with board members. How is it going with inviting people to the event? What do you need? How can I help you succeed? That kind of follow-up, that kind of personalization is something you're going to hear often as we drill into some of these other board roles.
All right, our second role as a board member that a board member can play is as an investor. So this is the board member who is leading by example in giving. They'll be the ones that make their own gift early and will model that culture for other donors. This board member can be part of your matching gift or be a lead gift for your Raise the Paddle. And then this is the part of the strategies that we're talking about. Don't hope and pray that your board members will give. You do need to have these conversations with them ahead of time. Throughout the year, what is their capacity? What can they do? What will they do? And then how will they actually give at the event?
Some of these might seem familiar. Again, investors, we want to plan ahead. We want to make sure they have enough time to understand what we're asking them to do. And this one I think is key. We don't want to assume. If you've got a board member that's supported your event for 3 years in a row, when year 4 comes around, you want to treat them like you would treat a major donor. Meaning, talk to them, learn about their priorities, ask them to support your event. When we start assuming the board's support by the virtue of the fact that they're board members, we start to run roughshod over that relationship, and that is ultimately going to hurt your board's effectiveness. Finally, gratitude and impact stories matter. I've heard it said, well, we don't need to thank these board members. They know how much we appreciate them. Well, that's where you're wrong. You do need to thank your board members who are investing in this event. You do need to tell them and show them these stories of impact, not just what happened at the event, but what is your organization now able to do because of the event? And assuming that your board members know all this or understand all this already because they serve on the board, that's a dangerous mistake to make.
All right, role number 3, recruiter. So this is also a very important role. This is the person who's bringing people to your event, and hopefully they're bringing new people to your event. Remember at the very beginning, we talked about problems with your event. And if one of the problems is that your event is the same people over and over again, this is where you want your board to play a crucial role. And I've even had where table captains, for example, if a board member is serving as a table captain, asking them to help recruit additional table captains from their guests over the past years. So again, a way to bring in new folks to your event. And a recruiter board member won't stop at just guests. Hopefully they're also the ones that are bringing in potential sponsors, companies to your event, and as well as volunteers too.
So when we're talking about our recruiters, our recruiting board members, details matter. We want to make sure our board members understand the details of this event, not just the logistics about it's on the 5th and it's at the Hyatt and it starts at 6 o'clock, but what kind of event is it? When people are invited to an event that's new to them, they actually want to know more than just the logistics or the mechanics of the event. They want to know, is it formal? Is it stuffy? Is it fun? Are you going to be there? And that's another great thing we can have our recruiters do is say, yeah, show up at 6 and I'll meet you at the door and I'll introduce you to some people. Another important element of this, of working with our board members, is always being able to talk about the big picture. I mentioned this 2 slides ago, that the event doesn't exist by itself. We're not doing an event just because we want to do an event. We're doing an event because it's going to lead to greater results for our mission, whether that it's more people served or more people fed or more houses built or whatever it is. That big picture story gives the event context and weight, and your recruiters need to understand that. And be sure to share the stories. Share the stories of people who came to an event and fell in love with your mission. Share the stories of the people who went to the event last year and had a great time. Share the stories of what your nonprofit is now able to do because of the community support you've generated through this event in the past.
And finally, role number 4 is champion. My hope is that you have more than one champion on your board. Hopefully you can get all of your board members to be champions at some point. The champion is really the ambassador for your mission. They're the ones that are providing event credibility. They are the board member who's able to make it really personal and say, this is why I support the mission. This is why I am a board member. Those are the kinds of statements they're able to say to their community. And then a champion might also play minor roles in some of the other 4 categories. They're hopefully the ones that are recruiting new attendees who mirror that kind of that ideal audience that you want. They're serving as a table captain, and they're recruiting others to be table captains. Or they're leading by example with a gift. They're thanking guests after the event, and they're stewarding donors. All of those things is what you would want in your champion.
So no surprises on this slide, right? The big picture, the planning ahead, not assuming, remembering that gratitude and impact matter. The core element here is to get personal. Remember, Gazala shared earlier in the presentation that a trap a lot of nonprofit leaders fall into is referring to the board and treating the board as one collective group, and assuming that if it's said in a board meeting, that counts as strategy or engagement. Or if you sent one email with one slide deck or with one sponsorship deck, the board members automatically know exactly what to do and are ready to roll. And the reality is we need to get personal. We need to have those one-on-one conversations, because your board members, however much they love your mission and however much they have committed to and continue to give to your mission, they do not engage with the mission the same way our staff does. I'll share an example. When I was leading a fundraising team at my local Habitat for Humanity affiliate, my team would get very frustrated after our fundraising committee meetings, because they would say, well, we explain the same things every month to these folks and they're not getting it. And I have to remind them, I'm like, remember, we are working on this mission and thinking about this mission about 1 million times more than our board members are. That's not to say they don't love us and they don't want to help us, but they're just not where we are. They're not up to speed yet. And if we expect them to catch up with staff in one email, we're going to be disappointed. But if we take the time and have that additional conversation and engage them and get them excited about this event and how they can legitimately help us, they're going to do it. It's going to be worth your investment of time, because they're going to really perform for you. So if all those previous slides were too long, didn't read, here's the big picture of what we need for board support. We do not need them to set timelines. We do not need them to pick votives. As Gazala said, we do not need them to indicate the source of a particular vegetable in a particular dish. We do not need that. I've told board members in my career, I do not need you to tell me how to set up the event. I can figure that out. What I need is revenue and relationships. I need my board members to engage their communities and bring them to this event, because the power of the board is the power of their network. And that's really what we need them to tap into when it comes to our events. So when I'm working with board members and we're talking about the ways they can help with the event or with a fundraising event, I think in 3 big buckets. I think about event planning, I think about the day of the event, and I think of event follow-up. And there's some specific things we can ask our board members to do and some specific things we need to do to help our board members in those areas. So when we're thinking about the planning stage of the event, this can be where things immediately start to get crazy, right? If this is where board members are going to start asking about the color of the tablecloth and the set list that the DJ is playing, this is where a clear expectations document is incredibly helpful. A document that lays out in bullet point form, these are the things I need you, board member X, to do. And here are the things that you, board member X, can expect from me as the staff. And having that document, a physical document in everybody's hands and walking everyone through it, really eliminates a lot of confusion and tells people, okay, this is how I can help. Being really clear about the goals and the purpose of the event. The goals might be how many dollars raised or how many people in the room, but the purpose might be something else. It might be driving your scholarship program or driving a particular form of your mission. Make sure your board members understand that. Make sure they see that. And make sure we've got them set up to provide that fundraising support and that outreach support. Like we talked about in the previous slides, having those personal meetings with the board members, having that compelling and those clear materials that help them, that empower them to get out there in the world. That also might mean creating talking points for your board members or helping them with email drafts. Or there's a lot of different ways we can help them. But the core of this planning work is being really crystal clear about the expectations and then helping them succeed along those lines.
Okay, so let's assume that you were able to follow all the things that Chris mentioned for the planning. So it's the day of the event now. And this is where we often see our clients slip back into old habits. That's when board members start asking and they show up and they say, okay, what job can I do? And I want to be really clear that board members are not there to work the event. They are not your greeters. They're not your raffle ticket sellers. They're not your volunteer coordinators. They are your hosts. Their presence really needs to elevate that experience for guests, and it's not meant to fill staffing gaps. And when a board member is focused on connection instead of tasks, then the entire energy of the event will actually shift. So their roles for board members are to build relationships, reinforce the mission, create a welcoming experience, and then also model enthusiasm and generosity. And reminder that their responsibility is to talk about your organization and help guests feel connected to your organization. So in terms of looking at things to do and ways to engage, avoid turning board members into staff, as I mentioned. And so the roles that they shouldn't play are, in this case, greeters, for example. And what I'm talking about here are the greeters who are wayfinders, people who are showing folks how to get to the space or where to go to get registered. That is a great volunteer or staff role, but it's not a great role for your board members. You want them to connect with people, and just showing them where to go isn't necessarily a connection. Again, don't have them play volunteer, have them be a volunteer coordinator. A volunteer coordinator is going to be working the entire event. They can't stop and connect with guests. Selling raffle tickets, as I mentioned, that again is an area where your board member's not connecting. They're simply asking a guest for an ask, and you don't want them to be doing that. Or managing logistics. If you give your board members jobs, they're going to stop building relationships. And when board members are given operational jobs, they disappear into those tasks and they really miss that opportunity to connect with donors and guests. And you're going to lose their biggest value, which is their presence and their voice. So, what should board members be doing? Well, board members should act as intentional hosts. They should welcome and connect with their guests, introduce guests to staff and leadership, thank sponsors and supporters, and share why they care about the mission, and really help create an engaging atmosphere. And that's where board members will shine. That's where they're going to bring credibility and warmth and authenticity to your event in a very different way than your staff members can. And when your board members are visible and engaged in connecting with people, then your guests are going to be feeling like they're part of something bigger and more meaningful. So assigning board members to specific sponsors, major donors, or VIP guests is a great way for those folks to feel like they're seen and valued throughout the evening. And this will also ensure that your key guests and your key sponsors and your key community leaders are receiving that warm and personalized experience throughout the event. I have an example, actually, two real world examples of how we did that at an event. So this example here is an example of an organization where we included board members as part of the program. Our MC started the evening off with posing the question of why it was important to support the organization, and then we had board members popcorn their answers throughout the program. They stood up, they gave one or two answers on why it was important to support the organization and why they themselves support the organization with their time, their talent, their resources, and of course, their own dollars. And then I have another example, a second example, where we had a board member who presented the land acknowledgement on stage. This was especially powerful because the board member was part of the Duwamish tribe and was actually the great-grandson of Chief Seattle. So it was a really, really powerful way for that board member to participate in the program and, again, be part of the mission and the entire event. And both of these examples allowed board members to play those significant roles and really highlighted them as ambassadors for the organization rather than completing a specific task or a job.
Event follow-up is this is my favorite thing. And I'll tell you why. Because when I was running fundraising teams, I would tell my teams that the most important day in our event schedule is the day after the event. That's the day when your guests have the most knowledge and the most emotional connection to your mission. And so often we get so depleted by the time the event's done that we let that day slip by. And this is where your board members can be absolute superstars for you when it comes to event follow-up. This could be something simple like handwritten notes, handwritten thank you notes to the sponsors, phone calls to the sponsors. I would say phone calls are even more effective than handwritten notes these days. But a phone call tree that your board members are responsible for following the event, super critical. Think about post-event evaluation. This is another important part. Are the board members in an opportunity to help you evaluate how the event went, how their roles in the event went, so you're taking those notes and getting ready for next year? I've even had some board members host a post-event get-together where it's maybe a thank you reception for sponsors, for donors at the event, and the board members can host that. Those tend to be a little more complicated because there's a hosting element. But even just, again, as simple as making sure that every single sponsor gets a phone call within 24 hours of the event, thanking them for their work, it's gold. And the reason it's gold, it's the same reason this works for any donor engagement. It's because this is the ball that gets dropped most often in the nonprofit space, is that thank you, that stewardship, that follow-up. And if you could do this, it's such a powerful and heartfelt way for your board members to support the event. And this goes back to that idea that not every board member is going to be your champion. Not every board member is going to do everything, but every board member can thank somebody for supporting the event and supporting their mission. So here's another case study. And look, I'm naming it so you know it's good. I worked for Habitat for Humanity of Orange County down in Southern California. And one of the things we did was an annual donor recognition reception, where all donors who gave over a certain amount in the year got invited, and it was kind of a State of the Union meeting. It was nice. It was a lovely little event. One thing we noticed that was happening is we had board members come to the event, and the board members were kind of clumping up. They were clumping up throughout the room because they knew each other and they were talking. And we thought, hey, we can do something better here. So we asked for some board volunteers to be purposeful in meeting and greeting people at this event. In fact, we gave them an assignment of, I believe we were doing 3 to 5 names each. And they had to find these people in the room. It wasn't a huge room. Had to find the people in the room, thank them for supporting the event, thank them for supporting Habitat, and ask them, tell me how you got involved with our mission. Because everyone in the room had already given. So there was this shared story that everyone could tell. And the first couple of years, the board members who did it loved it. And the number of board members who wanted to do it kept growing. And it got to the point where I had to shoo board members away from my registration table because they were hovering, looking at name tags, looking for the people they were assigned to find to see if they had checked in yet. A great problem to have. But again, this was a really light lift for me and the staff, a really meaningful moment for our board members, and a really meaningful moment for our other donors, because we were connecting them in community to each other. And it wasn't about asking them for more. It was about celebrating their generosity and showing them this broader world that they were all a part of because they all supported our mission.
I also have a case study that is successful. This organization is Northwest Children's Foundation. They have an incredibly robust board of directors, and each board member is expected to participate in their gala and commit to a minimum of at least 1 table for the event. What they do is they have what they call affinity partners. Each board member is assigned to a trio, and those are their affinity partners. And basically, it's an accountability trio. So one board member, usually the gala co-chair, is responsible for connecting with each individual trio and making sure that they're operating effectively, that they're doing their parts to fill the room, provide those connections, bring those donors to the event. And the board does do help with procurement, because this is actually a very procurement heavy event. And so there are some, there's lots of silent auctions items and lots of live auction items. But the board is helping with high level items and, again, connections. And then on the day of the event, the board is helping to set up only. So this is really important to the organization. They want to all be together on the day of the event during the day. So everyone arrives at 9 a.m. and from 9 to noon, all board members are there helping, just being told what to do and creating and actually finishing tasks. And then they leave at noon and come back on the night of the event. And that's where those board members, same board members, are connectors and hosts and champions of the organizations. So no board member on the night of the event has a specific task or a role that will take them away from that connection role. And that's why this one works so well. And then finally, in terms of putting this all together and to recap, what I really hope that you take away from today is that successful events are not about doing more. They're really being about being more intentional. So we often see organizations trying to fix their events by changing the format. Maybe if we added more elements or we tweak logistics. And the real opportunity is in how you engage the people who care most about the mission, and that is your board. When your board members are focusing on timelines and decor decisions and small details, they're not really operating at their potential impact. They can make a much bigger impact when they can focus on relationships, storytelling, and then bringing others into the mission. And that's when you'll see everything change for your event. Your event will become more warmer, it'll become more authentic, and this is the most important thing, it's going to become more sustainable because you're actually building a community and not just producing a party. And remember, not every board member needs to do the same thing. So some will be natural connectors, some will lead with giving, some will bring new people into the room, and some will be your strongest champions. So the goal isn't to make your entire board all uniform. It's to have clarity on what each board member is doing. So when each board member knows and understands how they can contribute in a way that aligns with their strengths, then you're creating a culture where people will feel connected, confident, engaged, and excited to participate. And that is when your event is going to move again to something, being something that you can execute, and to something that your entire organization will champion.
There's a slight delay in slide.
There we go. Let's see if that works.
Back one, maybe?
Yep.
There we go. Look at that. Flawless. So again, another recap, some recap thoughts for you here. Anytime I'm dealing with a fundraising challenge, whether it's an annual giving program or a major giving program or getting board members to get involved with fundraising, it always helps to go back to why. And in this case, having the conversation about why does this event exist? This is the first step in event planning, and it's a great way to re-ground your board into why we're asking them to support it. Why are we asking you to be a champion or a recruiter or this or that? Why? And here's why. And that why, again, is usually not about the money raised. It's about the community built. It's about the opportunity to turn event attendees into long-term donors, to turn them into champions for your cause. So understanding that, understanding what a successful event looks like, and getting kind of buy-in from the board that we are all in this together and this is how we are going to get to this successful event. Again, I mentioned clear expectations. When we're working with volunteers, when we're working with our board members, being really clear about with our expectations helps everybody succeed, helps people know what they're asked to do, helps people understand what sort of support they can expect. And this is not an analogy I use in front of board members, but we're all friends on this call, so I'll use it here. Think of it like cooking with a toddler. You wouldn't just bring a toddler into the kitchen and say, we're making brownies, help out. I hope you can support my effort in making brownies today. Like, you're probably going to give them a very specific task. You might help them with the stirring or the eggs or whatever it is. But we don't just throw them into the kitchen and say, good luck, kid. We want to help them. We want them to be successful, and clear expectations are the way we get there. And finally, try, test, and talk. Like, sometimes in the nonprofit space, when a new idea or a new way of doing things comes up, our fear reaction tells us like, well, we can't do that because we can't do that forever, or it won't work, or like we start to kind of back away from it. But I encourage you to try something new. If this is new, try it out and see how it works. Evaluate your efforts, evaluate the results you got, and talk about it. Maybe there's parts of this presentation that you can start doing tomorrow or today. Maybe there's stuff that's going to take you a little way to get there. But I encourage you to try something out and test your results and see what that does for your mission going forward, because your mission is too important to have board members arguing about vegetables, right? You're doing important work. We need to be focused and serious about this. We have a little event checklist for you, which highlights some of the items we pulled here. It's a great tool to use with your board members as you're preparing for an event. And it talks about the pre-event, the day of the event, and the follow-up event. So you can hit this QR code and we'll take care of it from there.